Yeah, I suppose there's no way that we can do the work that we're doing, um, and want to have discussions about, like the fundamental approach and almost like the fundamentals of why we're here as human beings and where we fit on the planet, and how did we actually bring all of that into synthesis and actually evolve. So I don't see how we can't have that perspective without addressing the whole ethics issue. What are ethics, and how do you actually then how do you actually maintain this ethical perspective? How do you actually continue to evolve your understanding of ethics? So I think it's a really great discussion for us to chew over, which I know we have on and off, over months and months and months. It seems that we're always talking around, this sort of thing, because I think it starts to become one of the great challenges of leadership is how do you actually set direction, and how do you actually take a group with you in that direction, and maintain a real ethical basis upon what you're doing. I think it's a good one.
Mm.
So what does the ethics thing feel like for you?
Well, I guess in previous weeks we sort of talked around the ethics thing just from a different angle. To me, ethics is really just about, what are you aligned to, and for me that's where ethics flows from. So how I experience my ethical guidance is not from a whole bunch of rules that I've created, and I haven't created them from what is good and what is bad and what is right and what is wrong. Ethics seems to be more of this natural flow of just knowing from a higher place. Within, give an example, within a particular experience. In that moment, just allowing that feeling, that higher feeling to flow through, just opening up into, okay, what's the way here? What's the way forward here? What would be the highest ideal? What would be the most ethical way that's going to support everyone concerned within this experience and situation? And then just allowing that guidance, that knowing just to flow through. Seems to work pretty well, and the interesting thing that I find about ethics, approaching it from that perspective, that, fast forward a day or two or a week or whatever, and find yourself in another similar type of experience, that ethical guidance, that knowing from that higher ideal of what is best for all concerned, maybe actually be a little bit different in the next moment or the next experience. However, the basis may be the same, such as it's still based on what is actually the best for all concerned. And, what is going to support everyone going forward and so forth. What is fair and reasonable, what is mutually respectful for everyone concerned. All that. So, I feel that where I've made mistakes with ethics in the past is when I've had rules around what is good and what is bad and what is right and what is wrong. Because what I've found is that from experience to experience, what was right or what was wrong last week may actually really not be the most ideal way to approach the next moment or the next experience going forward. So I found that having rules around, I can do this, but I can't do that, actually created some limitations on how I was approaching some experiences. That's kind of how I approached decision making and my ethical guidance for a lot of years, until I just got to the point of going, this is just not working. I've got to look for something that's more in flow, much more natural, and more organic. That's going to be helpful from moment to moment to moment to moment. And that took me a fair bit of time to transition out of a rule book, a mental construct of a rule book, to move over into something that's more natural and flowing and organic. I know that some people are much more natural with that than others, but that took me some time to roll over into that. I'm always still refining that. I'm always still looking at how I can improve in receiving that ethical guidance, that higher alignment to what is actually going to be the best thing for all concerned within the team or the project or the business or the initiative or whatever happens to be the thing that we're leading. But So that's kind of a bit of a short summary of how I experience ethics compared to how I was doing it once upon a time. How about yourself?
Yeah, I love the way that you brought, the whole rule-based approach into it, which I suppose is fine, and that takes us so far. But that's the thing, when you start to go, okay, so we want to move out of this world that's based on self-interest, and we actually want to move into something that's actually more focused on the collective good, then it is that aspect. And then I suppose this is where I see ethics, and the definition of ethics that I have is that it is aligning to something that is far more bigger than just me. and it's actually sinking into here and going, where's the next step? What's the next move? Which is the best way to go with this particular decision? And it really challenges us to actually, connecting with these bigger aspects of us. And that for me is that alignment to ethics, is that I'm actually aligning to an aspect of me that actually sees the planet as one, as actually sees me as an aspect of humanity, and yet sees all of humanity, sees all of the other kingdoms on the planet, sees the plants, and sees the animals, and sees the minerals, and actually then experiences all of that as one. And the way that we actually live sustainably is actually in the best interests of all of that, which is of one. And so as you align into that and go, well, actually that's where I'm coming from, then the ethics side of it then actually says, am I making decisions? Am I making choices? Am I stepping in directions that are consistent with us evolving along that sort of pathway? And where in that sort of realm, is like being outside of ethics, is actually maybe where we've lowered the sights. We've lowered the sights, and it's all about me as this individual human, and I still have to acknowledge that there's aspects of me that actually to feel like that. But it's actually developing that self-awareness so that you can go, oh man, actually I'm not quite seeing things in totality that I really understand them at the moment. I'm a little bit more focused on what does this mean for me, and how it might be discomforting, or how it might be unsettling, or what it might mean to the short-term things on the ground for me. And it's like, oh, okay, so being out of ethics means actually not being aligned to that bigger aspect and the evolution and good for all. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the whole ethics discussion is often interchanged with morals, is this thing. And I suppose I still see the morals versus the ethics type thing. Of morals is the standards and guidelines and all of that are set by the collective group, and it might be a business, an industry, a country. One of the forms of religiosity, is that the morals are the rules and the standards by which you live by, to be, consistent with everybody else in there. whereas the ethics take that to another point, whereas I'm actually not looking outside of myself to go, hey, is this the right choice, or is that the right choice, or should I move this way, that way? It's actually, well, I'm actually going within, but I'm going to inside to that part of me that actually sees everything as far bigger. It sees everything as one. It's not the bit of me that just sees me. It's not the bit of me that actually says, how might I profit from this? That's you clearly start to feel that is out of alignment with with that broader perspective. So I reckon this is why it's such a valuable discussion to have, because we start to bring an awareness into it. There's all these little things that come into it as well. It's like, oh, that's right, I've got to maintain my awareness of this. I've got to maintain this understanding of myself in relation to everything else, and I need to understand evolution from a perspective that to be sustainable, we're all one, and we actually need to find synthesis, for want of a better term, with everything else on the planet. So so they're the ethical decision making, is that am I consistently aligned with that, and therefore are the decisions that I'm making actually taking a step down that path. It's a good one, because the other thing that comes in is no absolutes, and this whole thing of being understanding that we as we're working with other leaders to actually develop these sorts of capabilities and these alignments, so that we can actually align our ethics into there, is that we're not going to get it right all the time. The simple factor is that we're not going to get it right all the time. Yeah. And so then it starts to become important to be surrounded by ones that can actually have our confidence to go, hey, I don't think, maybe that one wasn't quite in alignment with what we're doing, or does that one feel right? It's just someone's around that can actually then just tap us on the shoulder sometimes and go, maybe it could be bigger. Maybe we could be, more holistic with this and do that differently. Or hopefully someone would stop you and actually go, hey, listen, you're about to end humanity. So don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So it's a helpful one, and you can see in here this is not a 5-minute job to align and stay in a consistent ethical perspective. So it takes a lot of work, which goes back to some of the discussions that we've been having for months, about this whole concept that the leader is always the first to transform. And so if we're going to accept leadership roles or have an aspect of leadership in this alignment to evolution, well, it means we've got a whole heap of transformation to do. We have to actually do that realignment of actually going, well, listen, I know I'm an individual person and I'm an individual human, but I know that's not all of me. I know I'm, so it's a matter of going, well, we've got a lot of work to do to help bring that in and allow that to really anchor in and then use that as a basis to then make decisions and guide the way we go forward.
Yeah, that's a great point that you're bringing there. Absolutely. Like we were talking about in our last episode, the whole, leadership through personal transformation thing. And our ethics continue to also raise up as we experience, learn, grow within ourselves, and we evolve within ourselves. Our ethics should be completely aligned to something, at least where we're at, the highest aspect of where we're at, if not even higher, for us to have something to continue to pull us forward and into even a higher level of understanding and growth and leadership. Yeah.
The other aspect of ethics in there is, I suppose I look at it because, in contrast to the way that maybe some leaders operate on the world today, it's the other aspect of ethics that I just love is am I going to make the same decisions, the same alignment of decisions, and focused on evolution, whether I'm in a room full of people that I've actually told that's what I believe in the way I'm going, or I'm actually in a room by myself and there's nobody around watching me, and the only person that knows the decision that I've made or the step that I've taken is going to be me. And in that regard, am I still prepared to actually maintain an alignment to the ethics of evolution and where we're heading? I love that one, because I think all too often, I think we as leaders can fall down in that regard. As soon as we look for opportunities to loosen the reins, as soon as we look for the opportunities, to just, no one else is around at the moment, so maybe I don't need to set the bar here. Maybe it's okay to have it here. And it's a bit like, well, what does it matter whether someone's around or not? What does it matter whether you're in a crowded room of ones that you're leading, or whether you're actually in a room all by yourself? Ethics is ethics. So, it's one of those things of going, well, maybe leaders in this aspect, maybe the bar is set higher for leaders. Maybe we do actually say, no, well, if we're going to be leading, we actually should be held to a higher standard. We should be okay to be measured against, being consistent in these sorts of alignments and the way that we go about making things work. I'm not sure that might be the case in all circles at the moment, but, and also understanding that's a big stretch. That's a really big stretch, but yet if we aspire to be in positions of leadership, then it's like it comes with territory. Is the responsibility of maintaining the evolutionary alignment and staying in ethics.
Yeah, well, there's that wonderful word, embedded in leadership, and it's lead.
Yeah.
To lead, so the person leading, quite often has to make the higher ethical choice to be able to, bring the team or the project or the workplace or, whatever they're in leadership of, whatever they're leading forward, they're the ones that need to be taking this first step forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I have to say, I've had some really interesting conversations myself over the past couple of weeks in business circles where one of the clients that I've been consulting to, we were actually having this sort of discussion about, about broader perspectives of leadership and maybe, with sights a little bit more than this quarter type thing. And then the question came back, is that what about this decision that I've just made? Do you think that's the best ethical decision in that sort of situation? And I have to say, the thing up there, I sat with it for a minute, and the response really was, well, I'm not so much interested in the decision that you made. What I'd like to talk to you about was, what was your motivation? What space was it coming from? It's like, let's maybe decide that by what were your motivations and what were your alignment? What were you seeing of yourself and your place in the planet and humanity? And what was that looking like? And therefore, how did that guide the choice that you make? It was really interesting to have that discussion, because it started to give some real insight to go, is that decision correct or not? Well, actually, the decision in and of itself could be, or it might not be. Let's look at the motives. Let's look at the alignment. Let's look at where you are at. And it's like, well, the more that we can get that clear and consistent, well, then the more that you can actually almost like be rest assured that the decisions coming from that are actually going to be okay. And so it was a really interesting conversation to have with regards to that, because that's, that puts it then back into that space that there's actually no right or wrong. There's actually no right or wrong whatsoever. It was, well, what was your motivation? What was the alignment? And then let's examine that, and from there we can make sure, that the decisions that are going to come out are actually more in alignment with where we're going and what we're doing. And so I think that's not only is that a really interesting experience, it's probably, it's a top tip type thing, is that if you're playing with leadership and you actually want to be setting your ethics, to a broader perspective and a higher standard, then the decision that you make is not so much the reflector of is that right or wrong. It's more of what was the motivation and what were you seeing of yourself and of everything else when you made that decision. That probably gives the greatest insight into how far in support of evolution that decision, was going to have. So, yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? It's a great space then that we can maybe work with everybody to actually start looking at those sorts of things when we start to test ethics and are we on the right page or aren't we?
Yeah. That's fantastic. That's wonderful. Yeah, I completely agree that, what are someone's motives? What are their intentions? What are their drivers for coming to the decisions that they have come to, whether if they call that ethical or not, or whether they call that higher ethical or not, like how do they think and feel about themselves will just completely influence their motives for pretty much everything, really. Like where are people taking their guidance from? What are their priorities in life? If someone's priority in life is to, just to make a lot of money, within a business or within a project, well, that's probably going to be their driving factor. Now, that might be great for that, for that particular person. But if there are a whole lot of other people in that project or that business that have got other ethics that want to contribute in a really healthy, mature way to the planet, then there's a split between, the leader in this example and others in the team. So they're going to be heading in different directions, working towards different things. So, yeah, motives, gosh, how often do we talk about in the workplace these foundational, fundamental things such as, like, what are your motives for wanting to work here? Like as we're unpacking this, it seems so obvious that you probably should talk about these type of things to ensure that everyone is actually in alignment, heading towards the same thing and working towards the same thing. But how often do we ever have these conversations about, well, what are your motives for wanting to work here or participate in this project or business? And, what are you wanting to get out of this? What are you wanting to achieve? And I know some places have these conversations, but, it kind of seems like as if it'd be common sense to have this as a standardized way of engaging with the team. Why are you here? Well, why are you applying for this role? Why do you want to be part of this? Where are you going? Well, this is where we're going as a business or as a project or as an initiative. These are our ethics. What are your ethics? Is there a compatibility here? Are we aligned? Are we actually genuinely going to work in the same direction, same alignment? Yeah. Thanks for bringing that. That's wonderful. The whole motive thing.
It's a great one, I suppose. As we continue to evolve, the best feedback we'll end up getting about, whether a call was, completely in line or not, will actually be the feelings that we get. Is pretty quickly you get one that goes, oh yeah, okay, that feels okay, or it might be, oh no, that wasn't it. And it could be different between, stuff that's felt in the gut or stuff that's really felt in the heart center. Is that sometimes some of these decisions could be really challenging for the team, and it might feel really uncomfortable in the gut, but it still might feel really good in the heart. So it's a bit like, we've got to be better attuned and starting to discern all of these different physiological type aspects that come along with it. So man.
Well, that's a really good point. Like how do we go about navigating that? From our heart center, it's like, oh yes, I just feel all of this way forward here. However, I've got these knots and not so feeling great things in my within my guts, like, which is saying something different. How do you navigate your way through that? Because all of that is going to have some sort of influence on your decision making and how you perceive ethical guidance and alignment and so forth. What do you reckon?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole, you can feel the whole development cycle that's in there, as well as we start to attune to different things. You can start to feel all these little different receptor areas that you start to look at, because there's no book that actually says this is a correct decision and this is an incorrect decision. There's nothing like that. There's just feedback, and feedback will come in the terms of, well, first of all, my introspection, how did I feel my motives were, and how was my alignment, how aware was I, and then how did it feel in the heart? Did it feel like it was actually guiding me towards evolution or not? And then what was the other physiological things that were going on, and were they just actually symptoms of the discomfort of making the decision, or were they actually feedback receptors as well, whether this is an alignment or not? And that's why it's such a process, and I suppose this is a really good topic because it is something that we can share for everyone to actually start to give some really tangible differences in what leading in this alignment towards evolution starts to look like and feel like, and what the decision making process start to look like, and how we receive feedback of the different decisions that we make, and so you can see then that this is not just a 5-minute change. This is something that we actually have to hone, in all of our different receptor areas. We have to learn how to listen. We have to learn how to realign all the time, because we're never going to stay in the same alignment. We need to keep coming back to it or refining it. So there's this whole process that we can go through to start honing all of these aspects, and what that equates to is we get clearer motivation, and we get far better awareness and understanding of who we are and where we fit into the picture, and then from there we can actually make better decisions, and the better decisions just come because we practiced more. So while we're practicing, we just need to make sure that we've got plenty of ones around us that can, if they can't just pick it up in the moment, to actually go, I'm not sure about that one, it can at least ask some great questions, and actually go, how was your alignment then? How did that feel? What was your motivation? What were you invested in, in that decision, and those sorts of things. And as long as we maintain an appetite and a curiosity to know some of this stuff, well, that's the sort of things that then start to allow us to develop towards this alignment towards evolution. Yeah,
that's wonderful. It's interesting, as these video series are, these episodes, they're all educational based, so anyone watching this, I'd certainly encourage you to have a real honest and authentic look and feel into, well, where are your ethics set to? Are they, what is actually going to serve me best, or are they set to what is going to serve all concerned in the situation or experience, best? Where is your ethical standard set to? And there's some fine lines in there, there's some fine lines. So, throw an example out there. You could be in a business meeting with a bunch of directors, someone's leading it, and they may all have they could say that they've got an alignment towards making as much money, and the leader could say, well, I made the decision based on what is best for all concerned in this room, but that's still, calling ethics, it's a lower standard, really, if we're honest with ourselves, as being selfishly minded and what is going to serve self, as opposed to what is going to serve the greater community, what is going to, serve all concerned. One of the, as I love the culture conversation. Interesting thing that I enjoy looking at from time to time for leaders is another example. If you've got a salesperson that's generating, it could be the top salesperson that's earning a lot of money for the company, but they've got a massive ego. They're a bit of an asshole. And they bring that, that type of attitude into the workplace and create a whole lot of cultural problems, that arrogance and that real, but so on one hand, they're the top performer as far as sales and revenue is concerned, but they also cause this destruction and mayhem in the culture of the business, which affects other people's ability to enjoy their workplace and their environment and so forth. Yeah. It'd be worthwhile pondering on for everyone watching this. Well, in that scenario, if you were leading that company or that project or whatever it was, what would you do? What would you genuinely do?
Yeah.
Do you say to the salesperson, hey, you're out because you're, a real pain in the ass to everyone else, you're not meeting the cultural expectations of the business? Or do you, spend time with that salesperson to try to bring them into the culture of the business?
Yeah.
Or do you just, let them keep on going about what they're doing and not really caring about the greater good for the whole of the project, everyone concerned? Interesting stuff. If we get really honest with ourselves, in those moments where money might be tight, but you're relying on one person to bring revenue in, but there are, a disruption to the rest of the business, how are you going to handle that? How are you going to manage that? How are you going to lead with that? Because at the end of the day, us as leaders, you as a leader, everyone's looking to you for direction. Everyone's looking to you for direction. If someone's being a real disruption into the business, well, everyone's looking to you to go, well, how are you going to handle that? What are you going to do about that? And if you don't do anything about that, then that affects your ability to perform as a leader and to be respected, and for people to stay within the business and contribute in a healthy way and, want to be there long term.
Yeah, which can really affect the culture. Can really very, very quickly actually invade the culture and actually start shifting the entire culture. But the other thing in there, I must admit, as you were presenting that, I was actually going, well, gee, as a leader, I'm actually going, what did I miss in the recruitment process? What did I miss? Because we've clearly got like a culture mismatch. Did I not? Is there some questions I needed to ask that I didn't ask? Is there some answers that I got that I probably could have dug a little bit deeper? How can I actually, help out with that? Get better, at doing that, and also then go, and then handle the situation of a culture misalignment. So it's quite a process, isn't it? Quite a process.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why it all just comes back to, like you were sharing earlier, about motives. Where are our priorities? If our priorities for the health and well-being of all concerned, then it would be a very easy decision just to spend time with that salesperson in that example that I presented, and either try to mold him back into the culture in a healthy way, or either just to let him go or let that person go. Because it's about what us as leaders serving the best for all concerned. If that's our motive, then that's what we have to follow through on.
Yeah.
And that's why people follow us as leaders. But if we decide to keep that salesperson on, then that's what we're saying to the rest of the business. This is the type of culture that I'm willing to accept. And therefore, that's what the culture ends up becoming.
And that's why this is a tough gig. That's why this is a tough gig, because, invariably we are confronted with these perceived conflicting, conflicting values and conflicting priorities. and it's only our alignment to the bigger aspect that we can, that we can actually feel the way forward. And that's the thing, is that when you're aligned, like when we're aligning to evolution, and we're actually going to say, well, this is the sort of that this is where we're really heading. Well, evolution in and of itself is actually suggesting a fairly constant state of change. So, a lot of the leadership decisions in that sort of thing are actually going to be choosing different states of change to be, so there's going to be, a fair amount of, or for want of a better term, disruption that's going to be in there. But it's a matter of guiding and knowing that there's certain aspects of disruption that are healthy, and if you push it a little bit too far, you're probably going to impact performance as you do it. So you've got to maintain all of these counterbalancing weights all around the place to make sure that you're still evolving towards this place, but you're actually not, you're not breaking things, or you're not leaving some behind while you're going down the journey. Yeah, it's a fascinating approach.
Yeah, it's interesting. So interesting.
Yeah.
Growth is challenging, but also, being in decline is also challenging as well. And as we talked about last episode, there's no such thing as just maintaining the status quo. You just enter into atrophy and end up declining, eroding anyway.
And that's the thing. I reckon the whole climate change type discussion is a really interesting one, because you actually see so many parts of the world at the moment that are actually trying to only make what change is absolutely necessary, and then make that change as late as possible, so as to not unnecessarily disrupt or to try and make things a bit smoother now, which is a bit of that thing we've spoken about in a couple of episodes, is which is a bit of trading off the future for the present moment. And so the ethical evolutionary leadership thing in there is actually going, well, how do we actually get there quickly? How do we transform things and get it to where we need to be quickly, and a whole heap quicker than we are at the moment? And that brings with it a whole range of challenges in there as well, which are all ethical, and on the same token is that this is why it's about bringing everybody along with us, and so this whole thing of even ruthlessly going down that path is quite possibly not an ethical decision as well, because you need to find a way to bring everybody along for the ride. And so there's going to be all of these different decisions along the way that are actually going to help us move in that direction, but we've just got to stay aligned to it, and then have enough change that comes along the way that we can actually digest it and consume it and embody it, and continue to evolve at the same time. I love it, because they're the big, hairy, juicy problems of humanity. There's some really big challenges that we're facing at the moment, and I reckon we're probably not facing anything bigger than this whole alignment to self-interest. We're shifting from self-interest to collective good. It feels to me like that's the biggest shift that humanity is being challenged to make, and so it'll be one of those sorts of things about, well, how do you do that? And we're probably already getting some signposts in there about what it is at the moment, with the rate of the mental health issues that we've got at the moment. And there's a lot out there, not everybody by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a lot out there that are experiencing these depressive states just merely because they're out of alignment with where their higher aspects are wanting them to head. And it's a bit like, it doesn't matter what decision I make, it doesn't matter how much money I make, it doesn't matter how many wins we have, it just doesn't seem to fulfill me. And it's like, no, it doesn't, because you're actually not in alignment with where these higher aspects of you are trying to head. And the only way that we can we can find that settled space is actually allow ourselves to actually almost like merge onto the freeway of evolution, and then we'll start to do it. So maybe in society at the moment, we're already starting to get some of these signposts and some of these steps that are starting to come out and actually saying, hey guys, don't ignore the whole depression thing, because maybe the depression thing is actually saying, you know, irrespective of what I'm doing, I'm not heading in the direction that feels to be the one for me. It doesn't mean that it's the easy decision. It doesn't mean it's the easy direction, but it's the direction nonetheless. And maybe through that process, we start to move down this path of shifting out of the self-interest into the collective good, and we start to feel all of the stuff that comes with, you know, the collective good, and actually allowing ourselves to evolve and allowing others to evolve, and actually being on a journey with others of evolution, and the feeling and the satisfaction that brings starts to outweigh the self-interest type aspect. So maybe, you know, over a period of time, you know, that's one of the methods that we'll be able to use to evolve.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ethics.
Yeah. And so simple and wonderful way to lead your own life, lead our own lives, you know, our lower aspects, you know, our personal bits that want to just be lazy, or that want to be, you know, wants to go earn lots of money or do the comfort thing, or, you know, wants to put his personal self before everyone else and so forth. Ethics are just a wonderful way to help those aspects to relearn something healthier that's actually in their best interests.
That will be.
Helps those lower aspects to train them to see, oh gosh, you know, serving others, you know, the greater good, the collective, is actually also serving myself as well. And it's a much more pleasant, graceful, lovely, enjoyable way to experience life.
And you know, the great thing that's in there too, which I love, is that this aspect of being aligned to something that's going to serve the collective doesn't mean that we just discard the self for the collective. Yeah. Because there's going to be so much that we need to do, that we need to invest in ourselves, that we need to, you know, be kind and patient and tolerant and you know, give ourselves plenty of rest, and, you know, all of these sorts of things. There are going to be times when we're going to have to do things like that, because it's going to be, well, actually, the best way I can serve evolution at the moment is actually to get some rest. And this is where it can be a real mind bender, because it's just like, hang on a minute, you guys have just been banging on about how we move from self-interest into the collective interest and be aligned to evolution the way we go. And now you're actually saying, what, there's going to be times that we actually have to be focused on the self. And it's like, there's going to be times when, in our alignment to evolution and where we sit on the planet, in that bigger alignment, that we're actually going to get the feeling of going, oh, you know what, I'm actually pushing things too hard. I'm stretching too far at the moment. I need to take some time. I need to rejuvenate. I need to, you know, do some things to keep me going. Because if I'm leading others, it's no point me actually setting an example of, you know, I'm going to drive myself into the ground, because that's not sustainable. So it's going to be that thing, and again, it's not going to be, is it now time to choose myself and what I need to do, or is it time to choose the collective? And the decision making type in there is going to be always come back to, what are our motives and where is our alignment? And as long as we can get our alignment and our motives for this clear, then in that moment when it comes, go get some rest. Then it's going to be, actually, the best thing I can do for my evolution and everybody else at the moment is go get some rest, because they're going to need me to be on deck, you know, to charge through the next one. But it's not going to come from me going, well, actually, I'm really, really important and I should be prioritized here, and I should be able to go away and have a holiday for 3 weeks. And again, go away and have a holiday for 3 weeks may be absolutely perfect alignment with evolution, but it might not be as well. And the only way that you're going to know is this alignment and asking these sorts of questions. So again, why it's quite a process to actually realign ourselves to this. So yeah, hopefully we've been effective there at completely contradicting everything that we've said, and then starting to chart a course the way through.
Well,
so if I was going to leave anything for anybody that's listening to this, is that there's a message in here is that it's less about what we do and what decisions that we make. It's more about what our alignment is and what our motivation is. And if we can clear that up, and if we can get that aligned to where we're going, it's almost like the decisions will actually sort themselves out. And the moments where I need to actually prioritize the collective over me will be really, really clear. And the times where I need to take some time out and actually, rejuvenate or do whatever I need to do, that'll be really clear as well, because I'm actually aligned to something really, a lot bigger, and I'll be having the receptors in place and I can see where we're going. So alignment and motivation.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess I've got a cup to put that in that might help people, with this, is that the whole self-care thing, the whole self-love thing, we a lot of us grew up, go to school, and if someone said that they love themselves, they'll get teased sometimes. And, so there's been this narrative, at least in the generations that I've grown up with, where, the narrative is, well, you love everyone. You love others first. You put others first before yourself. And, I get that. I understand that. However, if we're not self-caring, self-nurturing, and self-accepting and self-loving ourselves to the point where we've got enough self-love running through us, then how can we possibly share anything with anyone else? Yeah. How can we share love with others, genuine love, if we actually don't even have love for ourselves?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bit like that analogy of, if you're a cup, fill yourself up full of love first, and then the overflow that over the cup, you share the overflow with everyone else.
Absolutely.
It just means that our cup is always full, and that we've also got this constant overflowing of love, care, nurturing, acceptance, so forth and so forth, to share from that perspective. So we've got this abundance of these qualities to share with other people. Yeah. One of the things that Oz come through to feels to share in those moments where things are just really challenging and really tough and really confusing, or either it's like, stressful, anxiety, depressed, whatever the phenomena, whatever the experience is, I don't know the way forward. I don't know where the forward, like, what do you do? Because it's one thing to be able to go, well, I'm aligned to higher ethics, but if we've got all of this noise happening in our minds and our emotions, and our physical body may be not healthy for whatever reason, if we've got all that noise happening, how can we still receive and follow that knowing? How can we still feel into that alignment and feel into that ethical guidance, that ethical knowing, while still, when all of this noise is happening? Well, for me, one of the things that I do and have done a fair bit of is just to be able to take a step back from everything. So my experience could be here, in my immediate world, just to take a breath and step back from everything. Now, that could be just within the moment, or it could be not making a decision in the moment and actually just taking some time out, whether that be that day or that following weekend, just to step back from all the noise and just go, you know what? I see and acknowledge all of the noise that's happening out here, And a lot of that noise could be generated within myself, but I'm going to step back from it and I'm going to get bigger than. I'm going to expand bigger than this particular, all this noise. So you might need to get really grounded, whether it be go for a walk in nature or, you know, somewhere where you can just feel much more at peace within yourself and, you know, get really centered within yourself. You know, hopefully, you know something about getting heart-centered, you know, bringing your mind and emotional self and your physical self and, you know, all into this one space, you know, even if you're consciously aware of yourself as a soul, you know, bringing yourself into this centered space and then just, you know, aligning to something higher, aligning to this higher ethical understanding and knowing, and just allow it to flow forth. And, you know, that could be, you know, whether it be just going for a walk or reflective practices such as journaling, or it could be meditation, or, you know, however that is for yourself. I found that to be really, really useful. Just that practice of stepping back. If things are getting a bit noisy or a bit complex or a bit confusing, just to step back and to get bigger than it, and then come from that bigger perspective. And that's really helped me in the past, and hopefully there's something valuable in that for any of you watching this or listening to this. What about yourself, mate? Like, what do you do?
Oh, listen, it's just a constant development process, you know, of you know, we're probably all pretty, you know, we're both pretty practiced now on doing that, of just taking some time. Whether that is, you know, like as you suggest, it's, you know, it can be just change things up for a moment, you know, like go out and get a different perspective, go and sit in some nature, or go and stand in the sun, or whatever. But it's a matter of allow ourselves to have a checkpoint. And sometimes all it is just asking ourselves the question of going, you know, hey, how am I at the moment? Am I clear enough to make, you know, this sort of call? And I know for myself, when things get really stressful, and I might be feeling a whole heap of stress or a whole heap of anxiety, you know, in my bodies, and when I'm like that, normally what I find is I'm not worried about anything to do with right here, right now. I'm actually thinking of or getting worried by either something in the past or something that's yet to happen in the future. And sometimes it's just a possibility of something happening. And so one of those sorts of things that I'll do with that as well is just be present right here, right now. Just be present right here, right now. And you'd be surprised how quickly, well, I'm surprised actually how quickly for me is that all I do is this, and actually, come on, just right here, right now, let's deal with what's in front of us in this moment, and stop worrying about all this stuff that might or might not happen. And then all of a sudden, all of this, you know, the stress and the anxiety aspects really start to subside. So as long as, you know, the more that we can allow ourselves to stay, you know, aligned and present like that, then yeah, I find that to be really helpful as well. And then that just seems to click into, you know, to click into space, you know. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, well, I hope that episode's been useful to anyone listening or watching, and you got something valuable out of it. And, you know, go practice, you know, aligning into your higher ethics, and see what you get out of it, and what you learn about yourself, and what are the type of things that you can raise up within yourself, change, and what can you grow and change and evolve into, and, you know, keep on reaching higher and see what happens.